Subscribe to Bisbo and press the bell icon. See boring news turn into enjoyable stories. This video has a mega giveaway. We will be gifting all of you free shares of the world's most innovative company, Google. Do not miss this. In the great epic of Ramayana, when Lord Hanuman is brought to the court of Ravan in chains, burn his tail. As it is lit, Hanuman breaks free of his shackles,
Jai Sri Lanka.
leaps into the city of Lanka and uses his flaming tail, burning the city to the ground. Today, their own leaders' policies are leading the country to ruin. The citizens of the island nation are furious, surrounding the presidential palace, demanding the resignation of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. They are furious because exams are indefinitely postponed.
Oh God, give our government foreign exchange to buy some paper and ink.
They are furious because there is no gas in LPG cylinders and prices of essentials are unaffordable. They are furious because they have to use bullock carts to get around on city roads. Because lines outside petrol pumps are as long as 2 kilometers. They are furious because the government has banned import of cars, leading to zero stock in the market. Because of which the price of a car, which normally halves the moment you drive it out of a showroom, is now worth more than a brand new one. And they are furious because people are dying in the middle of surgeries as power cuts last 16 hours and there are no medicines available. If you think that is bad, there is worse news in store. This is just the beginning. Things will get much worse. There will be starvation. So how did this small idyllic island nation of 22 million reach the brink of disaster? As Ceylon, as it was known then, opened the economy in 1977 and a year later changed its name to Sri Lanka, the new nation received huge amounts of concessional aid or almost free money, which they distributed to its citizens in welfare schemes, subsidized food, healthcare and education. Sri Lanka constantly outperformed peers on social indicators as they spent 90% on welfare and only 10% on nation building. The aid reduced to a trickle at around the turn of the century, but they kept borrowing at high commercial rates of interest to support welfare spending. Around that time, Sri Lanka was isolated in the international arena due to human rights violations against the LTTE. So in stepped China as their savior in 2005 and began influencing politics in the country. They provided Sri Lanka with political cover at the United Nations, blocking potential sanctions, earning their eternal gratitude. A relation that strengthened post the devastation of the Boxing Day tsunami of 2004. Mahinda Rajapaksa had first approached both India and the US to develop a deep sea port at Hambantota in Sri Lanka's southernmost tip. Daily 200 ships sail past Hambantota. If we make a port, 10,000 will come. But both countries rejected the idea as unviable. It was a dud then and it is a dud now. So in stepped China as their savior once again in 2007 with a 15-year 6.3% loan, high for a long payback infrastructure project. They took more benefits out of it by insisting that only Chinese companies be contracted to build the port. China seemed to be following the words of the second US president, who said as far back as 1800, "There are two ways to conquer and enslave a nation. One is by the sword and the other is by debt." But Mahinda Rajapaksa didn't see it that way. Believing that the project would pay off, he put all his eggs in the Hambantota basket. To lure corporates, he built a cricket stadium with a capacity of half the entire population of the district, and anticipating a flood of arrivals, a massive international airport. But after 2 years, just 34 ships dropped anchor, and only 161 in 2014, proving the project to be a dud. A similar disaster awaited Matala International Airport. In 2016, Forbes called it the world's emptiest international airport. The World's Billionaires is an annual ranking report published by Forbes magazine. The list shows a dominance of American entrepreneurs and their innovative companies with their products and services used all over the world. Think for a second, you are watching this video on YouTube, which is owned by Google. Your phone is most probably running on either Android or iOS. You probably shop on Amazon, watch movies on Netflix. We really believe in the growth of these companies. So wouldn't it be great if you could also benefit from their growth? I am sure some of you invest in Indian stocks, but there is a major reason why you should consider investing in US stocks. Fractional shares. Unlike the Indian stock market, where a person has to buy a full share of a stock, the US market gives the ability to buy fractional shares, so one can buy a small part of an otherwise expensive stock. When it comes to investing in US stocks, most banks and brokers charge account opening fees and very high commissions and brokerage. But with INDmoney, it's all free. No commission on buying or selling stocks, no paperwork to open the account, no account opening or maintenance fee, no flat charges to load your US account. If you sign up with INDmoney from the description link and fund your US stock account, you get free stock of Apple worth 750 rupees in your rewards section, plus additional Google stock worth 50 rupees. Or you can install the app from the Play Store or App Store and just sign up with the code BISBOGO, set up your US stock account and fund it to get free Apple and Google stocks worth 800 rupees. Mahinda Rajapaksa was forced to go back knocking on China's doors for new loans as the island nation reeled from interest, maintenance costs and crisis after crisis. By 2022, Sri Lanka was in a big hole. The external debt was $50.7 billion and foreign reserves just $2.31 billion. Interest payments alone now took up 95.4% of government revenues in 2021, leaving little room for public spending on nation building. By comparison, its credit rating peers Ethiopia and Laos have interest payment ratios of 11.8 and 6.6% respectively. This crisis was made worse by years of unstable politics and corruption, with even a former Prime Minister defrauding the Central Bank of Sri Lanka covered extensively in our earlier story. Sadly, Mahinda Rajapaksa looked more and more like the story of the emperor with no clothes, with Gotabaya Rajapaksa becoming president while his elder brother Mahinda was Prime Minister. The Bade Mian Chote Mian combined consolidated their hold over Sri Lankan politics, with the entire Rajapaksa clan holding an iron grip over power. Despite the current crisis, the two brothers holding the top two positions refused to budge from their seats. They did not widen the tax net even as its ratio to GDP kept declining, which limited their ability for nation building. Then missed opportunities to diversify their exports from tea, rubber and coconut, which account for 90% of exports. As the crisis worsened, in November 2019, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa made things worse by fulfilling a campaign promise.
VAT rates are being reduced from 15 to 8% and the 2% nation building tax is withdrawn.
To cover these financial errors, Gotabaya Rajapaksa made a huge human error by banning the import of fertilizers and pesticides, but cloaked it in a way to show the world that he was taking the lead in green farming. Now, sustainable agriculture cannot be done overnight or forcefully, and certainly not when agriculture is a country's key source of revenue. Farmers need to be trained, and there is a transition period required for shifting over from conventional farming. He should have seen how 500,000 farmers in India's Andhra Pradesh successfully shifted to natural farming in a planned manner. Instead, he opted to copy China's Mao Zedong's Smash Sparrow campaign model of 1958. The great leader calculated that each sparrow was eating 4 pounds of grain every year, leading to food shortages in the country. Therefore, Mao ordered Chinese citizens to catch and kill the birds, destroy their nests, break their eggs and kill their little chicks. But he forgot to take into account the fact that sparrows also ate insects, who were now destroying far more of the farm produce. During the 2-year absence of sparrows, insects had a ball of a time. Until Mao realized his mistake in 1960 and revoked his earlier order. But by then, the damage was done. By the time Gotabaya realized his mistake, Sri Lanka was starving. Rice production dropped 43% and food inflation rose to a 47-month high of 11.7%. Months later, COVID hit, devastating Sri Lanka's main foreign exchange earner, tourism. The Easter 2019 bombings, also detailed in our earlier story, had already affected tourist arrivals. India was first to help, both during COVID and in the current crisis. The Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka immediately informed his superiors in New Delhi.
The people need help, fast. Most important is oil.
Despite India itself reeling from the huge spike in oil prices, it extended a $2.12 billion line of credit for them to buy oil, helping Sri Lanka at a time when all credit rating agencies had downgraded it, making it difficult for them to obtain international debt. Meanwhile, foreign garment and tea buyers have begun to divert their orders to other countries, making matters worse. Sri Lanka is trying the barter route and have found a willing buyer for their tea in Iran who supplies them oil in exchange. To save cash, Sri Lanka temporarily closed 3 of its overseas missions. But the Sri Lankan rupee continues to drop against the US dollar despite already falling 60% after a continued drain in its international reserves. To escape the crisis, scores of refugees have started taking illegal ferries to Tamil Nadu in what is reminiscent of a similar exodus during the 1983-2009 LTTE civil war. CAA, the Citizenship Amendment Act, specifically excludes Tamil refugees from Sri Lanka as they had no role to play during partition, leaving the current refugees in limbo. Undoubtedly, Sri Lanka will have to seek an IMF bailout and restructure its debt with its major lenders, among whom India is one. India too went through a balance of payments crisis in 1991 when their dollar reserves of $600 million was sufficient to take care of only 3 weeks of import. It was then that Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao and Finance Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh saved India from certain ruin.
Protectionism and socialist policies has brought India to the brink of disaster. We need to open up the economy and liberalize imports.
They physically flew out 40 tons of the country's gold reserves to Switzerland as collateral while negotiating a bailout package attached to a long prescription of economic reforms. Today, India has $634 billion worth of reserves, the 5th largest in the world, sufficient to cover 13 months of imports. In India, there was and remains political stability, a key factor for revival. Maybe there are some lessons in this for the Rajpaksha family. After burning Lanka, Lord Hanuman jumped into the sea to douse his tail. For Sri Lanka, there remains lot of hard work ahead. Bisbo's Limerick. The island nation is in a bit of a bind. They are looking for money but can't any find. How will they survive, their economy revive, if they don't dump the policies that got them behind? Don't forget to download the INDmoney app and claim your free US stocks up to 800 rupees. This app is used by more than 4 million Indians. Claim your free Apple and Google stock with the code BISBOGO. You will also find these sources listed in the video description section.